Good afternoon. This is the Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. It is Wednesday, May 24th, 2023. It is 3:02 p.m. This session is set to go until 3:30 p.m. This is a hybrid meeting. We're at 3000 Pacific Avenue Southeast, room 110. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menser. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. Also in the boardroom, we have County Manager Ramiro Chavez, as well as Assistant County Manager. And we have staff here today to talk about the Open Space Tax Program application review. And back to you.
Great.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm happy to be here. This is one of those nice ones for the community, and Marissa and the team have done a great job on this. I don't want to belabor the point, but this is, again, one of those programs that, as Board of County Commissioners, being responsive in a positive way to your to the residents of Thurston County, these programs set up that you continue to hear about through the Agriculture CPA 16 and all the other different items. This is just one piece of a larger puzzle, but it has a direct impact. And so your input and decision-making process in this is really important. So thank you again for your time, and I'll kick it over to Marissa.
Good afternoon, commissioners, county managers. My name is Marissa Wissman, associate planner and biologist here from Community Planning, and I'm here to discuss the Terry Open Space application. And for the benefit of any listeners, I'll begin with a brief overview of the Open Space Tax Program before going in to discuss the application currently in review. As you recall, the Open Space Tax Program is guided by the Open Space Taxation Act, which was enacted by the Washington State Legislature in 1971 under RCW Chapter 8434. This act requires county governments to conserve open space lands, and under this program, tax reductions are granted if qualifying properties are maintained in an open space state. In accordance with state law, all property shall be valued at 100% of its true and fair market value unless exempted by law, and the Open Space Taxation Act authorizes this exemption. Applicants must meet the criteria in RCW 8434 and in the Thurston County Open Space Tax Program guidelines in order to qualify. And if criteria is met, then property tax reductions are based on a change from highest and best use to current use, with the Public Benefit Rating System score determining the percent reduction. While the board determines an applicant's eligibility in the program based on application materials submitted and the Public Benefit Rating System score, it's the county assessor's office which completes the actual tax reduction process. Additionally, supporting documents such as a habitat management plan must be submitted with the application materials as evidence that the resource applied for exists on site. The application we're discussing today is for the Terry property for enrollment under the Significant Wildlife Habitat Area Resource category with no public access. James Terry Jr. wishes to enroll all of his 12.84 acres in open space, and there are no structures on site to exclude. This property is located in the Southeast Olympia area on Spurgeon Creek Road Southeast, which lies between Yelm Highway and Rainier Road Southeast, and is immediately north of Fox Ridge Lane Southeast in unincorporated Thurston County. As this map shows, Spurgeon Creek, which is classified as a Type F fish-bearing stream and is also the largest lowland tributary to the Deschutes River, runs diagonally through the Terry property. Spurgeon Creek on this property is mapped and documented by Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife as supporting coho salmon, which is a candidate species for federal listing, as well as a critical areas ordinance important species. The majority of the property also contains emergent wetland, which is a type of habitat which coho and other salmon depend on during their rearing life stages. And while they don't show up very well in this map, there are also two ponds which are adjacent to and north of Spurgeon Creek. And these ponds provide additional stillwater habitat, both for salmon rearing and for use by other wildlife. And I did notice on my site visit that there were a variety of waterfowl using these ponds. And incidentally, one of the factors that can provide eligibility to enroll in the significant wildlife habitat area category is the presence of a CAO important habitat or species on or using the site. And one of the requirements for this resource category is a site assessment and development of a habitat management plan by a qualified biologist. And these steps were taken for the Terry application.
And Marissa, for the benefit of the public, CAO is?
Critical Areas Ordinance. And the Terry property is located in the Deschutes Water Resource Inventory Area, or Area 15, and also in the Spurgeon Creek Basin. And the property is mapped within a Category 2 Critical Aquifer Recharge Area and is also zoned within the McAllister Geologically Sensitive Area District, or MGSA. In a nutshell, the purpose of this district is to minimize the contamination of, or loss of groundwater and potable water sources for the general public. Wetlands are actually very effective at carrying out these functions, both at water storage as well as filtering contaminants through the vegetation on site. Now this map, taken from county geodata, is a little more zoomed in, where you can get just a better idea where those two ponds that provide the additional still water habitat are. And also from geodata, this map is showing what I described previously, that all but a very small portion of the property are mapped with wetland. And my site visit did verify this. The whole site contains areas of standing water and plants typical of a wetland, like cattails, sedges, and rushes. In addition to coho salmon, a variety of other wildlife, which are classified as Critical Areas Ordinance species of local importance and Department of Fish and Wildlife priority species, are documented to use the site. They would include the big brown bat, great blue heron, and wood duck. And other fish species documented in Spurgeon Creek would include fall Chinook salmon, chum salmon, and winter steelhead. The applicant proposes to conserve the property as open space to provide fish and wildlife habitat and aquatic connectivity, and to protect a crucial aquifer recharge area. Habitat enhancement would include management of invasive weeds such as reed canary grass, Himalayan blackberry, Scotch broom, and English holly within 200 feet of Spurgeon Creek and the ponds. And their objective is to do this through mechanical removal. So measures such as mowing or shading, like using shade cloth or natural vegetation to shade out invasive species. And herbicide treatment would only be done if this was proving ineffective. And if they had to do that, they would make sure they were sticking closely to county code and according to labels. Additionally, vehicle access to the site would take place only during dry periods of the year to avoid water contamination and loss of vegetation, and would only be done if conservation efforts required it. And finally, monitoring is proposed to take place every 5 years to evaluate the effectiveness of weed management, as well as assessing overall site conditions. The Terry application appears to meet the criteria for enrollment in open space under the Significant Wildlife Habitat Area Resource category, based on the following factors, which are included in RCW 8434 and in the Thurston County Open Space Tax Program guidelines. The property contains type F stream and wetland habitat known to support CAO important species. The wetland habitat covers the majority of the property, and supporting documents, including a habitat management plan created by a qualified biologist to assess the site, were submitted with the application materials. Enrollment of the Terry property in open space creates the opportunity to preserve wildlife habitat and to protect water resources for the citizens of Thurston County, and is in alignment with the objectives of the McAllister Geologically Sensitive Area District, and is also consistent with Thurston County Strategic Plan Item 7 to balance development with preservation of the county's rural character, natural areas, and open spaces. The Planning Commission held a work session and public hearing on April 5th and May 3rd, and they unanimously recommended approval of this application. After review of the application materials, the Terry application appears to meet the criteria for the classification of 12.84 acres, qualifying at a 50% reduction as open space land for current use assessment. Commissioners and managers, I thank you for your time, and does anybody have any questions?
Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
What are the taxes on that piece of property?
This particular piece of property, the current taxes are $597.10 annually.
And so that'd be cutting that in half, huh?
And that really, the assessor's office would have to do their evaluation before we would know, if it would directly cut it in half, but it would be.
The
it would be a
the
50%.
valuation is reduced by 50%,
Yes.
the assessed value.
And then they have to mow it and keep it up, keep the blackberries out of there and stuff? The owners still have to maintain it?
Yeah, it's based on what their habitat management plan was, so they would have some assistance for the biologist to review the site and just basically overview, but yeah, the gentleman who submitted the application is very enthusiastic about managing the property.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out the why out of
The
this whole
motivation
thing.
behind
Yeah.
it, yeah, that was probably the questions that I had, is what is the
Why wouldn't it
motivation?
be better to have a conservancy outfit that's, I don't know, interested in salmon, give it to them? Give it to them. I don't understand what's going on. I
Well, the
can't,
property owner obviously has
I
a
know the
motivation
property,
of,
and you can't do a thing on that property.
because I think obviously it's not a financial motivation for the property owner in this case, because the conservation proposal and items that he or she is planning to do is way more than what he can get out of a property tax break.
Yeah,
So his motivation is perhaps more of an altruistic motivation to be part of
I
conservation.
would think the tribe maybe would want it or something, you know? Gosh, I can't understand why they would hang on to it.
But I guess we still have some property owners who would like to take.
Would
the
we
tax.
want it for spotted frog or anything like that? Any enhancement that we work
Well,
on?
This is a petition by the property
I know,
owner.
but I mean, maybe we ought to go make them an offer if
So
it's
it's
good.
not in that habitat screen, unfortunately, it's not in the range of Oregon spotted frog, but it
mean,
has been in the property owner's
yeah.
family for some time.
I mean, are we looking for mitigation property though is what I'm wondering about for our own HCP?
Appreciate that creative thinking, Commissioner. We want to be responsive to the applicant.
Yeah.
It's applicant's request.
But that doesn't say you can't ask the applicant if you want
And
to
so
donate
to
it.
Marissa's point, it's not within the Oregon spotted frog critical area.
Oh, it is not?
No, it's
Oh,
not.
I thought you said it was.
No,
Oh,
sorry, it's not,
Okay. well then.
Good idea.
Kinda nice to know.
Good idea.
yeah.
Kinda nice to know the property owner taking this step.
Yeah.
To go above and beyond, but because sometimes what we see as an open space, sometimes the motivation is the financial motivation behind it. In this case, perhaps it's not.
You know, that stream didn't have any fish in it until 53, salmon anyway. Remember, I was there.
You probably were fishing.
No, I'm just surprised, that's all. I really am surprised that they're gonna be paying, taxes on something and maintaining something that to me looks like a headache, but I'm glad they're doing it.
Commissioner Munzer?
I'm just curious, like, they got 3 points, how many points can you get?
You could get a total of up to 13 points, but that would be in cases where there's a priority resource on site and an existing historic or conservation easement. So it just varies by, what they're applying for and how many priority resources are actually on the site.
And 3 points get you 50%, what does 13 points get you? They pay you?
You could get up to 90%, but that's if there's an existing historic or conservation easement in addition to at least one priority resource.
Up to 90%.
How old is historic?
How old is historic? That's a good question. I know that something has to be at least 50 years old, I believe, to be considered vintage. I would be glad to come back with that
Oh,
information.
vintage, that would be a
Mhm.
good
There you
information
go.
to understand.
What was that question, Rob?
Well, no, if it was a historic easement, or conservation easement, that's it. I just didn't know if it had to be in existence for X amount of time.
Yeah, it
Guess
would
you
need to
could
be
grow
historic.
blueberries on it, maybe sometimes a year.
We can take a look at the program guidelines and bring that back. We,
They like their feet wet.
in 10 years, have never seen someone go for that, so we're a little rusty
Yeah.
on that information.
We only have about 55 properties on our historic register right now, so.
This one seems pretty high to me. I mean, you know, all the ones I've seen, there's no structures, no development. It's a pretty big parcel. A creek that I've actually heard of going right through the middle of it with
Yeah.
observed fish and birds. I mean, I was just wondering, how do you get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 points? If
They
this
would
was
need to apply for additional resource categories in order to do that.
So back to the habitat plan, right, they could do more and they could get more points
Oh, really? Management could get them?
if they applied for it. They applied for this amount and they got within
And
this.
perhaps
Public access a point or something? Because I know you made them note of no public access.
Yeah, that is an additional point.
So we bottom line to Commissioner Messer's question, if they were to apply for more points, the conservation proposal would be even more so, which could result in additional effort
Mhm.
by the property, right?
Yes, like you might recall the George property from last year, they were also in the significant wildlife habitat area category, and they received 4 points because they also applied for the resource enhancement category. But as Commissioner Edwards pointed out, that would also need more work on the part of the applicant, so.
Good reference.
Okay,
So the letter that's here, was this written by the property owner?
There's a letter by the property owner and also with Maura Healy from the Thurston Conservation District.
No other information, it's just a block of.
Yeah.
verbiage. That's what I was wondering about.
And so, yeah, looking through the application, he only marked 3, so I guess that's why he got only the 3 points.
Yes, originally, with the original application sent in, he was still exploring different resource categories, and I explained all the criteria and the need to hire a qualified biologist. And so then he made the final decision after that.
Yeah, I'm wondering here, like, I mean, these are obviously wetlands, right? And like, he didn't mark those, he just marked, because you have to have like a biologist, but I don't have to be a biologist to see that and be like, those are wetlands, right? Like, it's just very obvious, so,
But it would have to score as a category 1 wetland in order to meet that criteria for significant wildlife habitat area. And so somebody could spend, a pretty penny, say, on a consultant doing a full wetland delineation, which would be required. And then if it didn't meet that criteria, they've already paid the fee and it may not. So it was in his better interest really to.
That's a high threshold to be a category 1.
Yeah. And in this case, it was a wetland that's definitely beneficial, especially being in an MGSA, for protecting public drinking water. However, by having the CAO important species use of the property, they were able to qualify without needing to do the entire wetland delineation.
Commissioner Mensah.
so since Andy's here, connecting some dots from this morning. This paragraph looks like from the applicant says that the Shoreline Master Program has identified this parcel as being a rural conservancy. And I'm just wondering, is that true? And what would make that conservancy instead of natural? Just to give us a little preview of the analysis that we're gonna have to do on
Yeah.
shoreline.
Sure, yeah, I'd have to look at it specifically, but the natural designation is typically reserved for the most pristine land that hasn't had alteration, the shoreline configuration is intact, there's not a big presence of, structures or bulkheads or other modifications, things like that. And the other side of that is the shoreline residential, which is the most impacted, and then conservancy somewhere in the middle. So I'd have to, it may be that it's conservancy now, I don't know, maybe it's proposed to be natural, but, we can certainly look at that. I could arm Marissa with that information for the public.
Do you ever look at do you look at the parcel in isolation, or do you look at the like what's around it kind of thing? Like if it's a pristine parcel, but it's kind of small and it's been developed around it, would that make it conservancy? Because versus like having this sort of isolated single parcel as natural, or does that not go factor into it?
Yeah, it's tricky because when the analysis was originally done 10 years ago, it was done at the reach scale, and now a lot of the requests that we're getting are at the parcel level scale. So what we're trying to do when we look at those things is see what makes sense for that parcel in the context of that reach, and is it an anomaly and everything else was one way and this parcel just got looped into it, or is there a real distinct reason why, you know, one parcel should have a different designation than others. We have gone and changed designations, proposed designations for single parcels based on the planning commission's review where it has made sense to do so, but sometimes it's just a patchwork, and yeah, that original designation was applied at a much higher level, and that's what those criteria were intended to do. So you'll hear all about the struggle when we bring it back.
I appreciate the curiosity from the commissioners on this kind of extremely positive program for the local resident. So the next steps, Marissa?
Well, the next steps would be requesting a public hearing from the board.
Bring an AIS
Yes, is the next step.
coming up.
Okay.
Good
So
job.
with that, 3:22, we are adjourned. Thank you.
You can-